Never really realize, like, when you're like going into a creative field, how much like emailing you're gonna be doing. Hey, we're gonna do a week building in the woods. I said, okay, I'll be there. I think it's very atypical. I think that's kind of the point of it. It's like a chance to get back to the things that you thought architecture was gonna be. I do this job because I like making things. Getting to work with your hands again reminds you of, like, that's why I started doing it. So it's a breath of fresh air.
You're having students and practicing architects, and I think they're coming to the woods for the same reason, to be inspired, to collaborate and work with sticks and do stuff outside of the boundaries that kind of bog us down, whether it's in school or practice.
It's like a design build intensive. You learn a lot about teamwork and how to make your drawings turn into reality.
We were sitting at lunch and I was like, Charlie, I've got this kind of crazy idea. What if we as a firm hosted an event that was an educational offering for students and architects? And what if we challenged them to research wood material? And I think the root of that idea was pretty selfish at first. For me, it was getting out of the office, working with my hands again, studying a material again with my hands. And then as we developed the program, we started to uncover other reasons for doing this.
We wanted to make this offering to our local architectural community, but it serves the twin function of drawing architects, practitioners, students from outside that community to Birmingham, to Alabama, to the Southeast, so that you start to create some surface area for like a really productive exchange.
When it comes to school, you have 3 months to kind of develop your ideas, but here you're kind of forced to work in teams, and you're going to work with people you don't know, and you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone.
I knew little to nothing going into this, honestly. The amount of new people I've gotten to know has been really cool. We kind of feel like we're in a bit of a bubble in our studio. Also, there's so much food and it's so good, and I did not expect that.
What this is all called is design build. A lot of time we design it, then we give it to construction or engineers, and then they bring it back to us, then we give it back to them, and then eventually the construction happens and they make the building. In this case, this is what we have, and we have to actually make it. We've got a couple days, so there's no messing around with it.
One thing that I've seen in working with students is that there's a reticence to drawing, which is funny to say because it's really like the language that we learn how to communicate as architects. And so my wife, Mary, who's also an architect, she led a drawing intro. She calls it dirty paper drawings. I just call them dirty drawings. But the idea that you use charcoal, like fat material that's not super precise, and you have this notebook that you're given at the beginning, and then you pass the notebook, and then someone else finishes your drawing. And that drawing never becomes yours again. We lucked out this year of having the project still on site from last year, and so we moved to analyzing existing structures and understanding what they did last year. So then the next morning, when we asked all of them to draw their own individual ideas 3 times over, everyone's drawing. Everyone's doing stuff, putting stuff to paper. They're not afraid to throw things out.
There's definitely hard parts. I think that there's moments where you're going to feel stressed. Everyone feels that same thing whenever you're working on something, because you want it to be good.
You use a lot of creative juices when you're designing, so it can get really exhausting after a while. You can't just throw something together and it'll work. You have to be precise, and that can be really difficult.
The speed that we have to come up with a plan, is definitely a big challenge. There were times where it was very stressful and everyone's talking and we're all trying to just kind of like force something to work.
The hardest part is being okay with change. As your design sits there in front of you, you want to look at it for a longer amount of time, but you know that it's going to change in the next 5 minutes when you pin it up on the board and someone says, I don't like this part that much.
And yeah, there's conflict.
It was a bit rougher during the design process because people had different opinions.
It's like the typical challenges you have with working with other people. Like there's always, I think, a learning curve to like understanding where everyone's coming from and like what their working styles are. There's ample opportunity to fail, so.
If we draw it out more in section, maybe. So I know that our team, we took a moment to like take a break and then like kind of restart in a way, look at it again in a new way. And I think each time that we did that, we got a little bit more honed in on what other people liked, and we started to design for each other rather than like design for what I love. Now we're at a project where like all of us can, say that some part of it is ours.
One of the things that surprised me most the first time we did this was how complete the buy-in was from the participants. Everything we're doing here is sort of a contrived problem. These structures are temporary. The structures this year will be taken down the day after the event ends. And yet, to me, the tension is symptomatic of how much these participants have showed up and care about the work they're doing. I think if we didn't see that tension there, it would be a symptom of us doing something wrong.
Hope you got a good shot there.
When we come out here, it's not just about learning how to use a saw, it's learning how to talk with someone else about how to use a saw. So it's about communication, it's about finding a shared purpose, it's about working as a team, and then it's about using a saw. I've been to architectural conferences, and I, of course, studied architecture for 5 years, and I've practiced architecture for 8. And I've never seen a conference or an architectural retreat that programs other disciplines into the conversation. The fact that we had a day where we were really figuring out what our group dynamic was and using that group dynamic to navigate an abstract prompt in order to put together a schedule to build something that was going to be complicated and tensions were high. And the day's coming to a close, and we go into a room and listen to people who are lifelong poets read their work to us, was outstanding.
After an evening of chop and haul, kindling and banking fire, it's easy to feel self-reliant.
There's this moment where we got to take our blinders off and realize that we are doing work together, and that's a part of the life that we live.
Part of what StickBuilt is doing with the non-architectural presentations that bookend our days is priming the pump.
Architecture is an art. The students and the architects have the ability to take those fairly abstract disciplines and then craft those and apply them into something that they can then build.
The most important part about architecture and designing is to be creative and be bold. And I think that this really tries to get you to be as bold as possible. And you can't really get that in other programs or in internships or in school.
I was pleasantly surprised with the quality of the folks Will and Charlie brought in.
Time is actually nothing more than a record of change.
Once that idea is there, right, how you then get to develop it, how do you fabricate it? Passes her out.
If you're working from an honest place, the style just will happen.
And then this idea of momentary gestures versus enduring forms.
Just really great conversation, really great information, and different from the sorts of professional learning that you typically have. It's really lovely.
You work really hard during the day, and then at night you just get to socialize with your friends, like your second family almost.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I guess, tapping into your inner child, being able to just let go of expectations. I have a lot of favorite parts. Can I mention a few of them? Like getting up in the morning and not starting your day with work, but starting your day with yoga. Or going on a nature walk to find semi-synchronous fireflies. My other favorite part about StickBuilt is getting to use the Japanese handsaw.
Last year, I don't know that we knew that it could happen.
That what could happen?
That they could build it in 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. We didn't know.
Yeah.
We saw that they could, and they did. And I've seen a similar arc happen this year. So when you get to the final day, I think everybody realizes, like, we're going to make it.
It was kind of difficult to play an abstract concept like time into an architecture project.
Really, it's been like a pretty difficult prompt. I think it's also like provided less constraint. Time has been like a way bigger, like Pandora's box to open.
Our prompt was the word time. We had that in common with all the other groups. The second half of our prompt was the word less. You can think about that word on its own, or you can tack it on to the end of time and think about timeless. So that became sort of the debate. And we had a really great lecture that very day by an artist who is interested in the potential that two conflicting ideas have when brought together. And so we arrived at a consensus of sorts, which was that we ourselves were running out of time and needed to make some decisions and move forward together as a team.
We had a presenter talk about how time is just a record of change, and it made me think of the past projects from last year that are sort of run down and almost match the trees after all this time. And then we ended up sort of displaying time in our project through the idea of the forest and a tree maybe being upright and falling as time goes on. So our project's like a cascading large member that falls like a tree. Our material was glue laminated timber. I have a decent idea of how you put together a building with it, but in this instance we're not putting together a building, and we're trying to do something that probably hasn't really been done with GLT.
Our theme is time frame. Well, on our site we have this tree that's fallen down, and it's very noticeable. It's like in the center of our site. So we want to build a frame structure around it so people will focus on that tree. So we're framing people's view and framing an experience for them.
We found, a log on our site that was like torn out of the ground, a moment in time. I guess we went with like a moment as our third word in a way. Like how do we frame that moment? And if it changes, does it still feel framed?
Our material is PSL. It's basically taking scraps from different types of wood, mushing it all together with glue, and that makes it stronger. So that's the main benefit of it.
Time, line, or taking it separately, time and line. We did a lot of discussion about what those words mean, and I think there's something that they could mean like extremely literally. But I think for us, the material we've been given is solid sawn lumber.
With a story, right? From here, fallen log, milled here, like loaded with meaning, whether we choose to accept that or not.
And it's 80 years old, and so for us, I think our project is about respecting like the inherent time that had to go into making this material. This tree wasn't grown for this one time. It's grown for a number of projects down the line. That's where we ended up going with it.
I've been trying for, a year and a half to figure out what the like nutshell elevator pitch for StickBuilt is. And in the last couple of days, I think if you had to use one word to describe this event, it would be outside. There is sort of the face value appeal of just getting outside at a beautiful time of year. It also means getting outside of your comfort zone, getting outside of your expertise or study, getting outside your physical comfort zone. There is a certain amount of challenge baked into the idea of being outside.
Professionally, I spend a lot of time managing, and to challenge myself to step back from that and hopefully be a good collaborator with the rest of the team. That was kind of highlight for me. I'm going to call them kids. The kids I'm working with now have exceeded my expectations. That's really exciting, honestly.
The biggest thing is I'm really grateful. I was really hesitant at the beginning. I was like, I don't know, I don't like nature. I don't like being outside with the bugs and getting dirty. But I think this has definitely challenged my comfort, and I've had a great time, and I've met really cool people, and I've learned a lot.
What's unexpected is about how tight-knit of a community becomes so quickly. Like, I mean, I didn't know most anyone who was here, and it's within like a day and a half. You're just like sitting with whoever you want at breakfast, and you're chatting about whatever, and you all have like inside jokes with your team. And it's people who I think like care about what they're doing or are interested in doing this in a dorky way, but that's fun to be around people like that.